The Prophets of Pauper are back here with our crystal ball predicting everything. So let's dive right in. Hey guys, welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the sleep of the dead himself, Reese.
Hello.
Before we start, please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe and follow button so you never miss an upload. Also helps the algorithm and gets us great exposure. It's a really great way to support us for absolutely free. And another way to support us is give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, just because, you know, we are the greatest Pauper podcast of all time. We basically make no wrong plays or wrong predictions, so it obviously must be true. I guess the one thing I want to do is, I thought we'll switch it up a little bit this week. I'll start with how my week went, more because yours is much more interesting and in detail than mine. So that's basically it.
Yeah, fair.
So I got really excited, to be fair, this week, as I do every week anyways, about Pauper. But if you missed it, I had 2 banger videos, one after the other, if I do say so myself. So I had the red-black Kilnometer, I'm calling it, which was the Tiago list that came 26th in the challenge with the 3 tainted strikes. I absolutely loved that video, and I loved that league. It was so fun to play. But also, I also played Cat Food, a deck I've been brewing for a little bit since Bloomborough came out, and I feel like it's just spread like the plague. It's everywhere. I've versed it 3 times in 3 different leagues.
I have seen a lot of people tweeting about it as well, which is quite funny.
So I feel like I now know what Snapbolt feels like, which is cool. And I'm really enjoying the deck. I've messed with this deck. I even went to F&M as well. I went to Pauper F&M and played it. That's how in love with this deck I am. I've now got a different version I'm trying. I'm currently testing a Gates version, more in line with the food gate stuff, because I just really like Ginger Brew, and I really wanted Ginger Brew to be more better, because, you know, it felt really bad in that list.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've had people message me saying the verse in leagues, and I just think it's so fun. I honestly, I'm so happy. It makes me smile when someone's like, "Oh yeah, verse this deck again." That's what I like to see. Yeah, that's pretty much about my excitement of this week. Yours is much more interesting.
Well, I don't know. You sort of come up with a new deck, which is pretty sweet. Yeah. And a lot of people playing it is like you say, it's really gas. It's cool to see people tweeting the different lists. I know where this has come from. But yeah, obviously played a good amount of Pauper this weekend. As you did, I also went F&M. Which was the middle F&M of our Pauper League, which is pretty cool. I played Mono Blue Terror, basically to confirm that I was going to take that deck to Harlequins on the Sunday, because I was still just very up in the air on what deck I was actually going to play. But yeah, it went pretty well. I decided that, yeah, sure, I'll give this a go. And then on Sunday, I drove down with 2 of our locals, Andrew and Jenny, to Harlequins in Preston to play in their, I believe, first monthly Pauper event. It was going to be a RCQ or whatever they're called, the modern invite tournament. But basically they decided, because the modern was garbage, they were going to postpone that till after the B&R. So not last minute, but fairly late on, it got changed to try Pauper, which pretty convenient for us. It's probably one of the closest places that runs events for us, being up north. So I thought I'd give it a go. And it went really well with Terra. I ended up as the only undefeated player in the Swiss. I beat Jeskai FM round 1, Blue Black Fair Control round 2, Boris Sim for round 3, Corgates round 4, and then round 5 I was against Gardens, but we both got top 8, so we just ID'd. So yeah, a really good Swiss run. And then to add to this, both Andrew, who was playing Elves, and Jenny, who was playing Pingerburn, that came down from our club, both also top 8'd. which is just a really good showing for our local scene. The top 8 ended up as me on Mono Blue Terror, my Jeskai Ephemerate opponent from round 1, Bogles, which was played by Pauper Dan, who come across from Leeds, Gardens, Corgates, that was played by Alex, who had come across with Dan from Leeds as well. The Blue-Black Fair Control that I'd beaten round 2, and then obviously Pingerburn and Elves with Andrew and Jenny as well. Sadly, Andrew was the bottom seed of the top 8, and I was the top seed, so we immediately paired against each other in the first the quarterfinals. I ended up beating his Elves in 3 very close games, to be fair. Which initially going in, I was a bit worried about the matchup, because Elves is sort of one of those decks where if you don't have like the small pieces of removal or like the perfectly timed interaction, you're just going to get smashed a bit. That can jump, obviously, my Terrors and Serpents for forever. But no, managed to close it out. Boomerang like lifted the entire world on its shoulders in that matchup. And one game I managed to, I think it was game 1, I basically turn 1 Delvered and turn 2 Delvered and flipped them both and just basically clocked him as fast as I could with 2 Delvers. But yeah, so ended up beating Andrew in the quarters. In the semi-finals, I got paired into Dan on Bogles, which again was another matchup I was not looking forward to with Terra. Luckily for me, in the second game, Dan basically just mulliganed to oblivion and ended up having to put a bunch of enchantments on a plant token, which just got boomeranged, and then he was done. And then moving to the finals, it ended up being my round one opponent, who was on Jeskai Ephemerate. As Jenny and Andrew were now waiting on me, I was just like, do you just want to split this finals? So I didn't end up playing it out. We split, obviously, first and second place, which was cash and store credit. But yeah, it was a really sweet event. I ended up being the only undefeated player, I believe, for at 6 a draw and whatever a split is nowadays, and a draw, I guess. And yeah, it was really good. I ended up picking up some Legends Force Spikes to pimp up my Terror deck, and some Legends Chain Lightnings as well. Yeah, it did very much deserve the removing the 7th edition Force Spikes, which are the only ones I had. And yeah, and pocketing some cash, which paid towards our petrol to get down. So a really good first event from Harlequins, to be fair. The judge that ran it, I believe it was Heather who ran it, was really good, really well ran. All the rounds basically finished on time. There was very few games actually going to time, which is quite a good thing about Pauper at the moment, is it doesn't really drag on. Even the control mirrors generally have a way to finish out the game pretty fast. Trying to think what else I've got to say about it. Harlequin stock actually as well was really quite good for Pauper, and the way the grade cards as well left me quite impressed, because the 2 Chain Lightnings that they had on stock, one of them was marked as heavy played and one of them was like moderately played or something. I was like, oh, can I have a look at them first? So like, yeah, no bother. Brought them out and I looked at them. I was like, I mean, I would have probably said these are like slight play at best. Like, they were so clean, so they just must be really harsh on the grading, which is really good for if you want to buy cards from them, because you know it's going to be a really nice quality card. But yeah, great event. Everyone, as always, in the Pauper community was super nice, super approachable. Had a lot of discussions with basically everyone I played against, and a lot of other people that were there. A lot of crack from Dan about nationals, which has got me really hyped for that event coming up. And yeah, I'll definitely be going back, and hopefully more of us will be traveling down if they decide to make this a more frequent thing. obviously got a pretty good turnout. Got 22 people down. So hopefully that encourages them to do it again.
Yeah, hopefully. It seemed like a really, really good event as well. Like obviously we had quite a few people. I was away. Obviously, I was on the lash, let's say. But basically, it was quite good to get updates from yourself. Got it from Dan. Got it from Emma. So it was just literally updates about how well the event was being ran, and it was really good to see. And I hope that obviously they do carry it on. And I guess the one thing to add as well, not only was the everyone waiting on you, you also had a 2 hour drive, but also the way the prizes were. Obviously, with it being store credit, you have to then spend time actually picking your prizes almost, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it gives flexibility on you on what you want to win, but it takes time, obviously. I imagine it took quite a while to go through what they had, what they didn't have, and all that sort of what you wanted, and ended up with some Legends, chain lightnings, and force spikes, which is a free pickup.
To be fair, the way they've got it set up, they just have like a computer at the front desk, and you can literally just type in what you want, like, and it searches their stock. So it was. If you knew obviously what you wanted off the top of your head, it was ideal because you just I want to upgrade my force spikes, just search force spike. If you're like and iron, obviously it's going to take a while, but it was really good. They also, with the store credit, they would let you just add it onto your, like, make an account with them and add it on, so you could just go home and then order it online and use your store credit.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But yeah, really good. Really decent prizes as well. So hopefully for the next one, they get even more people come down.
Hopefully. Like to move on?
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet. So, just a quick news. Obviously, do not forget that we, as the Casting Commons Twitter or X page now, are retweeting all challenges or leagues, Spicy Brews on Twitter, and we are trying to double up as a hub for tech adaptation and all the competitive things. So please give us a follow and also just keep an eye on all the retweeted decks. It's greatly appreciated.
And if you tweet your 5 or your tournament result, tag us in it and we'll retweet it.
Yep. Moving on to the tournament news. On the 28th and 29th of September, Katowice, Come On Katowice in Poland is hosting a Pauper Classic event, which is a Pauper Trios and a normal Pauper event. There will also be on-demand side events. I've been told it's the best event in Poland. I have that on good authority. And the cap for the event is 128, and the tickets are on sale now and in the description in the show notes below. So please check that out. And then
I believe as well, if I'm not mistaken, these are sponsored by Card Market now, right?
Yeah, believe so.
Which is pretty sick.
And then additionally, any news on Nationals or any news on any other of the events in the UK, please give Pauper Dan a follow. As we can't be talking about all these events and all the monthlies that are going on, there is so many Pauper things going on in the UK especially. So it's hard for us to keep track of. So highly recommend giving Pauper Dan a follow for that. Anyway, do you want to move on to the challenges?
Yeah. So the Friday challenge, which was on the 23rd of August, 56 players. First place was Grixis Affinity. Second place was Blue Black Fair. Third was Kuldotha. Fourth was White Weenie. Fifth was Mono Blue Terror. Sixth was another copy of Kuldotha. Seventh was Grixis Affinity. And eighth was Blue Black Terror. Then the two near misses. Ninth was Green Black Glee. And 10th was Blue Red Scred. Obviously pilot by Spock because it's Blue Red Scred. So yeah, a pretty diverse challenge overall. There's obviously 2 Affinity and 2 Kuldotha. But apart from that, like, it's a really quite a cool spread. There's like a good spread of aggro, a bit of combo, and a lot of control. So yeah, it seems like a really sweet looking top 8, I guess.
Yeah, I think definitely it's definitely a sweet top 8. Obviously you've got Kirby and White Weenie, you've got Discover N in Mono Blue, and you've got Luffy obviously on Affinity. Like it's definitely getting established where there's very few surprises now. I think Blue Black Fair being the main one that's now sort of the new hotness. Like it's sort of come back. I'm assuming obviously due to how good it is against Brute Scale and has other utility like Spellstutter Sprite is just generally a good card. But other than that, like it's definitely getting to a good, healthy rotating meta. Like mono blue terror's doing well, then Affinity's doing well, and then white weenies coming up on the back, like sort of thing. It's really good, and it's really good to see that it shows in this top 8. I think by how diverse it is.
Yeah, and although obviously like the decks at the top of the format are like Grixis Affinity, Kuldotha, Mono Blue Terror, that are and the Glee obviously that are represented there. They're not like the whole top 8. They make up like parts of it, but then as you say, like Blue Black Fair, White Weenie, Blue Black Terror, Blue Red Scred, all like getting in there.
There's no clear winners either from when you look at the data either. It's not like you've got like you were used to, like with 23 Kuldotha up here. Like you're literally on like 8, 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. And that's a good healthy spread of the top 6 decks or whatever. So
in terms of lists, there was nothing that really struck me out of the ordinary. The Blue Black Fair list, I guess it's sort of getting a bit confusing now between Blue Black Fair and the Blue Black Control decks, because the Blue Black Control decks are now like going to Spell Stutter Sprite.
Yeah.
The sort of main standout for me is the Blue Black, what we call Blue Black Fair, runs like Ninja of the Deep Hours and Fairy Seer, alongside Spell Stutter Sprite, where the Blue Black Control, like the one I versed at Harlequins, didn't run ninjas or fairy seers, but did run Spell Stutter Sprite and
Sneaky
the
Snacker.
new fairy Sneaky Snacker. So they are actually like pretty similar in terms of numbers of fairies. Even like the control deck actually runs more fairies now than the Blue Black Fair, which is quite odd. But yeah, ninja and fairy seer are sort of the main difference in there. A lot of the spells even are the same.
Yeah, I find it pretty interesting. Fair, like I think the main one is Dihadi's Ploy is a good one that they use in the control list because it's pretty good at obviously getting back Snacker, but also good at pitching with the Modern Age as well. Is generally another one that I've seen, but that is just like minute numbers. Whereas this Blue Black Fair list here is running Wither and Bloom, so which is also seems surprisingly good as well. But yeah, I do agree. There's nothing really standout-ish. Seal of Fire in the Kuldotha, which isn't out the ordinary. It sort of flickers in and out, to be fair.
Yeah. The Kuldotha list, the third place one, was like a bit of an odd one, like we seen last week with the extra land in the Forgotten Cave.
Yeah.
Gone up on 3 Goblin Grenades and still on 2 Reckless Lackeys. But then the 6th place one is sort of what like more up my street, to be honest. It's like a lot more like classic Kuldotha, just on the 16 creatures, still on a bunch of Chain Lightnings, a 1/0 Fire Blast, and just a couple of Goblin Grenades. Looks pretty clean to me, to be honest. This is sort of, if I was playing Kuldotha again, this is where I would start from, I think.
Sideboard's pretty cool with the Kessig Flame Breather too in the board.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit pretty old tech, that, but I'm not sure how good it'll be without the impulse effects. But if you're expecting basically just a bunch of breath weapons and stuff, it's probably going to be quite decent.
Pretty solid one. But yeah, I do agree. Nothing really standout-ish. The affinity lists are sort of getting very similar, and it's just the minute choices in certain slots.
Yeah, I think everyone's basically figured out that Sneaky Snacker is not where Affinity wants to be. And have all sort of solidified, like between 1 and 2 Kenkus, 2 and 3 Crackland Shamans, and then 4 Marinforcer, 4 Refurbished Familiar. There's still like some change. Like I believe one of these runs Cast Downs. 2 Cast Downs alongside the 4 Gald Blasts, whereas the other runs 2 additional Toxin Analysis instead of the 2 Cast Downs. Sort of does the same job, killing big threats. So I can definitely see that being a reasonable change. But yeah, in general, like the core of the deck's so tight now. Like you are ending up on like 2 to 4 flex slots, and that's basically it with Affinity.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, there's not too. Even the Blue Black Terror as well, which is another thing. even to that extent, like nothing's really standing out. Even Blue Black Terror looks fairly stock. Like the odd, I'd
Yeah,
say you're looking at the odd card here and there. That's sort of like, okay, that's an interesting addition, but
I guess
nothing.
it sort of stands out by just actually being just Blue Black Terror is
Yeah,
back. Like I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like we haven't seen just like standard Blue Black Terror in quite a while with like two archaeologists, four Gurmags, four Terrors as the threats. Um, but yeah, you could probably pick your Blue Black deck that you used 3 months ago out the cupboard, and it wouldn't really have changed. Um, which is not a bad thing, to be fair.
No,
It's
no.
nice to see these decks sort of rotate back into doing well. Obviously, Daniel, who plays this a lot, is on Blue Black Terror often, so it's not surprising to see them up there. But it is sweet when these sort of decks that we haven't seen in a while just come back in top 8.
Yeah. I do think that's pretty much it. He just occasionally plays Pauper. I think he's just a general grinder, sort of similar to Mogden. Just when he does dabble in Pauper, it's like I'll pick up Blue Black Terror unchanged. Nothing matters anyways. That'll
And
do.
cheekily top 8.
Yeah, pretty much. Um,
Any other comments from this Friday?
no, I think I'm all right.
So moving on to the Saturday challenge. Very different from the Friday challenge. This was Saturday, the 24th of August. 53 players. First place was Black Green Glee, piloted by Baker. Second place, Mono Blue Terror. Third was Kuldotha. Fourth was Ponzless. Fifth was, I've called it Ponza-ish, because it was like a hybrid between Ponza and Ponzless. We'll go over that. Sixth and seventh were a pair of Jund Glees. Eighth, once again, making a top 8 performance, White Weenie. And then the two near misses. Ninth was another copy of Ponzless, and 10th was another copy of White Weenie. I guess the first obviously standout for me is like Thraben Charm is mental as a card. Like just a single card allowing White Weenie to compete against like these level of decks is nuts. Like it's a deck that without Thraben Charm would just constantly be dead in the water to the Glee combo decks. It would have a lot harder time against stuff like Terra as well. But yeah, just Thraben Charm as a card gives it so much utility that the little white creature deck can compete with these busted combos, and it's sweet. It's really cool to see White Weenie doing so well.
Yeah, 100%. It's pretty cool to see. I think a lot of people with Kirby top 8 on the Friday ended up taking White Weenie, and looking at it, it was the most played deck on Saturday with 7 pilots. It didn't have a great win rate, it had just under 50%, but when you've got a lot of people playing it, and also it's very much a matchup dependent deck. Like Kirby, I think, tweeted basically saying he got the god what he wants. He want every matchup he wanted to verse, he versed. Like I think he versed like 3 Kuldotha.
Yeah.
So, which is pretty sweet. But in terms of this, like the whole top 8 is sweet, definitely different, and again, but showing that it is solidifying. I think, like you have the other half of the like 5 decks almost or whatever in this Saturday challenge that wasn't in Friday, but they're all not in massive amount of numbers, as you say. There's 2 Jund Glee, 2 Ponza, so I guess 3 Glee if you want to lump them together, but still not crazy numbers.
I guess last comment on the White Weenie stuff before we move on. The 8th place list had 2 Suture Priests in, which is quite cool tech against the Glee decks as well, to be fair. It's essentially a 2-mana 1/1 Soul Warden, so whenever you play a creature, you get a life. But it also is like an inverted Soul Warden for your opponent, so whenever a creature enters under their control, they lose a life. So assuming they don't have like a kill on board, if they're trying to go off through infinite mana, they can only go so high and so far with their brood scale, which is quite cool. Obviously, it's not going to work every time, but it's a nice bit of tech to have that you can play towards a White Weenie game plan of just like tapping out and playing creatures each turn, but still have a condition that stops you dying on board.
I also think it changes depending on their kill, the way they kill as well.
Yeah.
So if they're like the first place Baker list is on Bloodright Invoker, it's a lot harder for them to win. I actually don't think they can combo through it. Like, I haven't done the math, but they would lose 8, then gain 3, then lose 8, then gain 3 to make the mana. So, I don't think they can actually kill with it. Where Nightblade, you can stack the trigger because the tokens leave. You don't have to let the Suture Priest damage actually resolve if you have a Nightblade in play. So I think with a lot of them solidifying to like Season of the Mist sort of lists, like Bako has here, with 3 Bloodrat Invokers, I think Suture Priest gets much, much better.
Also, just a lot of the time, the Brute-Skill player just doesn't have a win con and has to like chain through some Deadly Disputes or Insights to find it. And if they're losing like life for every single one of those, they're only going to be able to go so far before they have to stop.
Yeah, 100%. It's a nice one. I've versed it before, sort of when Trespassers Curse got big, like straight after Broodskill and stuff. And I think a lot of people then, when Broodskill first came out, were on Nightblade. So it got a lot worse for quite a few people like who were playing it. Like, I feel like I versed it about 2 or 3 times, and every time I played it coincidentally, it didn't matter. But that was just because I had the Nightblade in play, or had the Nightblade in hand. But definitely with Bloodright getting more popular, I definitely think Suture Priest might be actually the card that you want to bring in or have in your main deck. Because it's not a bad card either.
No, it's solid. Going, I guess, to these Ponza-less-ish decks. Firstly, the Ponza-less in 4th place is basically 100% stock. Like, even down to the sideboard. Exactly what you'd expect from the Ponza-less deck. The Ponza-ish deck that I've called is a bit of an odd one because it isn't Ponza. It's got the 8 enchantment mana ramp base. It's cut down on Altasaurs and something else. End? Is that right? Yeah, cut Ents as well for 3 Nyxborn Hydras. And it also just plays 4 Acid Moss. Like, no Thermocasts or anything, but just 4 Acid Moss and 4 Malevolent Rumble. So it's sort of like a weird halfway house again, as we seen, was it last week or the week before, with like the few different Ponza decks that we were seeing. It's just sort of another one of those.
It's a strange one. Like, I do get it. Also, like, having some sort of land destruction is okay. Like, I sort of get it. But also, if you are boarding in, if you're boarding in like the artifact hate against Affinity, you generally keep in the Acid Moss because it still ramps you and you can like nab a Mirrodin land. So it's not awful. But I also, like, there's going to be games where you'll draw 1 and then you're like, it didn't matter. And it's like, okay, I've just paid 4 mana to ramp myself. Like, play Sakura Tri-Belder if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I also find that Acid Moss is a lot less frequently just ending the game on turn 2, like the Thermocast can. Like, if you just, like, Enchantment on turn 1 or Arbor Elf on turn 1, into Thermocast, like, that obviously puts you quite far ahead. It's quite hard to do that with Acid Moss. Can you do that with Acid Moss? Do you need like double enchantment or something?
To turn 2? Did you say? Sorry.
Yeah.
To turn 2, you need Arbor Elf and a 1 enchantment and 2 lands.
Yeah.
But,
so yeah, it's obviously you need both pieces of ramp. Whereas the Thermocast is so much easier to just do on turn 2. So yeah, an odd one.
Yeah, I guess they've just went for the one that's not really dead. Like, even if you do hit it and it's not great or whatever, you can at least ramp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or colour fix. Like, it makes red, which I guess is okay. But again, yeah, I don't think I'm fully sold on it. I don't really, like, I would sooner probably put 4 in the board than I would probably put 4 in the main. But the sideboard is a bit tight.
Yeah, we still have obviously the problem that we spoke about like a week or so ago with the cascading into Nyxborn Hydra being really, really bad. That hasn't gone away. That's still just the same. If you cascade into your Nyxborn Hydra, it's still really bad. They've also gone pretty all in on seals in the sideboard, which is an odd one from Ponza. There's 4 Seal of Fire, and 3 Seal of Primordium, which is the Naturalize one,
Mm-hmm.
alongside 4 Declammers and 2 Cast into the Fires. So there's a tremendous amount of artifact here. Obviously, quite a lot of enchantment here as well with the 4 Declammer 3 Seals. And then I assume basically a pile of cards that you just bring in against Broodscale with the Seal of Fires and the Seals of Primordium.
Yeah, and that's what it sort of looks like. It's like I've got 4 Sailor Fire, 3 Sailor Primordium for Glee, and then I've got 4 to Glamour, 2 Casting the Fire, 3 Seals for Affinity, and it's like, that's sort of it. But then it does feel really odd, but I guess if you just sit them around, like, he's sort of okay, but I'm still not a fan. Like, surely there must be better cards than just Seals. Surely.
Yeah, I do like Seal of Fire as sort of a Glee answer, but it can just get outpaced. Like, if they just don't go for it and just put a counter on the Broodscale, like, you're just forced to kill the Broodscale, and then if they leave mana up, they can just put another counter on in response. Like, it's not a clean answer. It's not like it was against the Glitters deck, where basically everything had 2 toughness and you could just seal anything you wanted in response to a Glitters and it would be fine. It's like a sort of middle of the road answer that's fine but not great. And it's at that point where I'm like, do you just put Scred back in the deck? Or like in the sideboard, put 4 Screds in the sideboard? It's a lot easier just to hold up a Scred. Obviously you have the Cascade problem still, but you've got that anyway with Nyx-Born Hydras in your deck, so like...
Yeah, it does seem like they very much went, oh, here's these cards that are really bad to Cascade, and let's make them better by making them the Seals.
Yeah.
But then went, let's put Nyx-Born Hydra in my deck anyways.
But also, I feel like Seal of Fire is just not good enough against Glee.
No, I don't think so. But there is other. I guess there is other matchups maybe that you need to buy. I do think it's mainly for Glee. Like, I don't get me wrong, and I think it's probably mid to okay.
Yeah.
But there is other matchups that I guess you do want to have removal, and I guess Seal of Fire sort of fits the bill where if you're cascading on turn 3. And you cascade into a Seal of Fire, you might not want to. It might be too early for a Scred, so I sort of get it. But again, like, you live and die by the Cascade. Like, I don't know what you want. Yeah, the problem is there's not the perfect answer, and Seal's sort of maybe the best thing, but I surely don't think it is. Surely there must be something better than Seal of Fire and Seal of Primordium.
You would hope so.
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But oh well.
But yeah, that was my main 2 things I wanted to touch on from this top 8. Have you got anything else you would like to look at?
The only thing I want to mention is Baker's list is sort of like Season of Mists with the... So Season of Mists went up to 20 lands because of the amount of mulligans. But also went up, the 2 lands were Calney Gardens, which was really good because it's sort of like a dispute sort of sacrifice and all that sort of stuff. And that's sort of cottoned on as a really good tech to, mulligans low, all that sort of stuff. But I also like the fact that, I don't know, I haven't seen this in like the stock lists, but I do like the fact that there's 2 last rights in the main and 2 last rights in the sideboard. And against all these like sort of control-y decks, it seems just like the perfect card. That they usually sort of brainstorm, preordain themselves to maybe 3 cards, and with all these Chromatic Stars, Ichor Wellsprings, Deadly Disputes, all that sort of stuff, you've probably got 7 anyways, and then 3 combo pieces you actually care about. You could easily just throw some lands away and just, you've got no hand, or you're countering this and I'm comboing. It's a really good way of doing it, and I really like it.
Yeah, obviously they've cut the 2 of the duresses from the main to go to like the split of last rights duress. They've still got the other 2 duress in the board as well, so they can go super high on the discard. But I think especially at the moment for Glee, where the main answer to the combo is Snuff Out, the last rights makes so much sense because there is just a lot less counter spells about. It's people holding up Snuff Out Cast Down or Snuff Out Lightning Bolt or like stuff like that. So yeah, a last right just pitch 3 cards, blow up their hand, is really pretty legit.
Yeah, like even 2, like it'll be very surprising if people have 4 to 5 pieces of interaction in the hand. So literally doing 2 or 3 is a fine number to do, and you will have them spare. Like, you're running 3 Bloodrite Invokers, you only need 1 of them. You run a lot of lands, a lot of draw spells. Like, your deck literally just churns through.
Mm.
You could easily just go last rights 2 cards, take your 2 cards. There you go. Job's a good one.
Yeah, I found when I was playing the black green list, I did basically just end up with like loads of extra lands in hand
Yeah.
because you do draw that many cards.
Mm.
With the Deadly Dispute Eviscerator's Insight engine, it's pretty mental.
Mm.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Nothing too out of the ordinary.
Yeah, the Kuldotha list's pretty much what we've been seeing. The Mono Blue Terror list again it's got a couple of ponders in, but that's not unheard of now.
No.
And the Jund Glee lists are basically both the same. One has a gatekeeper in to win, the other just has a makeshift munitions. But yeah, apart from that, pretty stock Jund Glee. And we've went over the White Weenie already. Moving on to the Sunday, the 25th. 67 players. Once again, why Daybreak? Why is this not a 64 challenge? Why is it still a 32 challenge? We've had 4 weeks in a row that it's fired with more than 64 players.
Yep.
And it's still a 32 challenge. I might have to put that in the Discord. Actually, I keep meaning to, and I just never do. First place was Jund Glee. Second place, Mono Blue Terror. Third, Grixis Affinity. Fourth, Mono Blue Terror. Fifth, Grixis Affinity. Sixth, Black Green Gardens. Seventh, Dredge. Eighth, Ponzolus. And then the 2 near misses. Ninth was a Black Green Glee, and 10th was a Jund Glee. Another fairly mixed up top 8. We're still seeing these sort of top 5 decks heavily represented. But then with the outliers like Black Green Gardens getting in, and even Dredge this week, which I'm pretty sure was one of my hot takes last week, that Dredge would top 8 again. So I'll take that as a big win.
Yeah, I think we've got to add it onto the list of other things that we've predicted. We're just becoming Prophets of Pauper.
The Mono Blue list in second place, the Carry list, is a Demon Inferior list, which is quite interesting. It seems to have it definitely seems to be the second choice of list at the moment. It's not as highly played as the Boomerang list. I do really need to give it a go and see what it's like. It not being able to just plug the land on turn 2 seems like quite a big downside for me. And I'm not really sure what the upside of it is. It's a sorcery also, and you have to work to make it cost the same or slightly less than a Boomerang. I don't really get what the main upside to Demon Inferior above a Boomerang is. I can see it alongside, but it's something that doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, the list I played was Stompy's list, and it ran 4 Boomerangs in the main and then 2 Demon Inferiors in the side, and it felt really nice against decks that you just want to remove annoying creatures. It just really worked as additional removal. It just meant I had more to throw at the stuff and then just play big terrors and stuff. But yeah, I do agree with you. I think Boomerang just seems like it's got the best ceiling and the best floor. Both seem really good. Where Demon Inferior's flaws absolutely horrendous. Costing, what's the worst case? It's costing 3 because you drew for your turn. That's still pretty bad.
It's sort of as well Boomerang just always really impresses me as a card. Especially being instant. Multiple times at the Harlequin event on Sunday. I think round 1, I was on the play. I played Island Delver. Past turn, my opponent played a blue-red bridge. I untapped, flipped my Delver with a Boomerang, played a land, and just Boomeranged his bridge back to his hand. And then the next turn, he just played the same bridge and discarded a card for turn. While I got 6 damage in from a Delver and then just held up a counterspell.
Yeah.
And then I think in round 3, when I was against Todd on Boros Synth, he like the last play of his turn was he played the Boros Karoo and bounced his desert. I just end the turn, boomeranged his Karoo, and he was like down 3 lands essentially. It's just nuts. Like the player that Boomerang has, this just doesn't have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the permanent removal side of things with the Demon Inferior Thought Scour sort of line.
Yeah.
Like, that seems it's quite cool. Like, it's good to have access to. But again, I do agree with you. Like, the things that Boomerang does, and this doesn't even come anywhere close, is probably why I wouldn't be on Demon Inferior. The first place Jund Glee deck is quite interesting in the sense that it's a lot more like, is the best way to describe it, is a little bit tricksy. It's got a lot more tricks to it in the sense it's got 3 snuff outs in the main and 2 vines as sort of interaction for opposing Glee combo, while also still having the Brood Scale, Witness, Writhing Chrysalis sort of pile with Cleanse and Wildfire, which is quite nice. Looks pretty interesting.
It's also quite surprising, like how grindy the Jund list can go compared to the black-green list. Like you're not adding that many different cards, but essentially just Cleanse and Wildfire and Writhing Chrysalis just means you can grind out for days. And especially this list with mainboard snuff outs, like there's going to be a lot of games this wins where you just don't even combo.
Yeah. I'm really surprised there's 0 Blood Fountains in this list as well. Especially with Evolution Witness, you can like sort of loop them. Like you have access to that sort of loop. Especially when you're this combo deck, like it seems great. Just keep looping Brood Skills and Writhing Crystals with Blood Fountains and bringing back the Evolution Witness every time or whatever. Seems really great to just have access to for a very low cost of even 1 Blood Fountain.
Yeah, there's also no Crack lands in the main, right? Which is a bit of a different thing.
But Terminus is very much known for, I don't care what everyone else is doing with this X list. I will just rock it how I want to rock it, and it seems to work. Yeah.
The Dredge list, I guess, which I'm always hyped to see Dredge doing well. Sadly, it's not a particularly interesting Dredge list. It's basically what we've come to expect.
Yeah.
The 12 2-drop creatures, with the Malevolent Rumbles as well, instead of the 1-mana guy. Then basically just obviously your Exhumes, your Dread Returns, couple of Acorn Harvests. Yeah, basically stock. Not the Bones in the side, along with 4 Snuff Outs, which is basically a requirement now with all the Glee running about.
Yep.
Then your Ancient Grudges for Affinity, and a couple of Rotten Reunions and a Bajuka Bog for some graveyard hit. Gets the job done.
Pretty much it. I guess with the Circle of Landrood, you can easily play a Bajuka Bog as well. It's quite nice. Just sack your Circle of Landrood for, get back your Bajuka Bog.
I guess it has 1 bog in the main as well, which is not unheard of. Which is, again, handy with the Circle of Landrood.
And pretty much everything, apart from Circle of Landrood, which does it the long-winded way when it dies, pretty much everything pulls a land, Rumble, Wayfinder, Prowler.
Yeah.
So, it's not out the question to find a 1 bog, and it's definitely not out the question to find 2. So, pretty sweet. One thing that I do want to point out is the Ponzolus build on Brower in 8th place is running Nihile's Disciple and Scrud in the sideboard. I am all for that.
Yeah, it's again a weird. Like the main deck is again playing Nyxborn Hydra.
Yes.
I feel like these Bonza decks are just trying to find an answer to the mirror, or like a trample enabler, basically. They all seem to have settled on Nyxborn Hydra, which is surprising to me because I thought that little Kami,
the Shinnin of Life's Raw.
Yeah, would be a better place to be, or maybe even the Nihile's Rampager or whatever, Forerunner. That's the one. So it is interesting.
Encyclopedia of bad pauper cards.
No. It is interesting to just see them like all starting to settle on Nyxborn Hydra.
Yeah, that is.
once again cut down on ents to fit 2 in. It's also gone up to a second Oliphant, which makes sense. Like, it sort of makes more sense than an Export 9 dress, to be honest, as a trample giver to other guys, and has trample itself.
Yeah, it doesn't have many hits, but like for fetch and lands, like you have generally 1 to 2 mountains and then 1 of the jewels. So it's like not the end of the world, but it's very rare after the first land cycle you go for another, you sort of set.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do think that's you're pretty bang on with the Oliphant. I think it's just a better creature right now for the trample enablers for the mirrors.
Yeah.
But obviously Ents, like the previous list, I think it was on Saturday, cut Ents completely. And I think Ents not that awful right now. Like a 5/7 with reach is pretty good. Obviously with modern age, spell stutter sprites, all that sort of stuff knocking around, but you aren't short of reaches, I guess, with Chrysalis now and also. But it's interesting that they have chose to cut Ent as the weaker card. Like it's still running 4 repurposes, but only 2 Ents. Oh.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, this list has gone back to Scred in the board. Back on snow-covered lands with 4 Screds in the sideboard for some interaction. So definitely seems like an option that could be taken by these Ponzolist decks.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
No, I think that's probably it from me.
Yeah, I think generally as a note of all 3 challenges, I guess is the only thing to add is that they are very much getting settled in the decks and the archetypes, and they are very much rotating. All 3 are still, for the past 3 to 4 weekends, have all been very, very, very different challenges. They're like almost evolving in amongst themselves, but they're also, but there is also it's not really much out of the question. Like we're not seeing as much tribe popping in, or do you know what I mean? You're not seeing something that's completely off the radar. Like everything that is coming through, Dredge, Gardens, all that sort of is sort of just behind the top 5, and that's not a bad place to be. Like White Weenie as well. All these things are just rotating in and out, and whatever the matchup lottery is, I think is probably what shows, like, which is a good sign for a healthy metagame.
Yeah. Obviously, I think we're seeing a little less brew, or quite a bit less brewing lately than we have in previous weeks. But when you look at what's released, that sort of makes sense. Like, we had Modern Horizons 3 that shook up the format quite a lot. We had weeks and weeks after that of like people testing different cards in different decks and loads of different archetypes and different decks top 8ing. We sort of got to a solid place as Bloomburrow was released, but Bloomburrow didn't really add much to Pauper, if anything at all. It was probably one of the lowest sets to add something to Pauper that we've had in a while. So it sort of makes sense that since then there's not really been as much of a stir up. So we are sort of settling into this sort of top 5, I guess, if you group the 2 Glee decks together. Meta with the fringe decks also like poking the cells in, like as you say, White Weenie, Blue Black Fair, Blue Black Terrace, Grade, etc. Gardens.
I think it's just hard to find a deck that obviously is good against them all. Like they all have inherent weaknesses. You could probably get 2 to 3 of good matchups, and that's sort of what we're seeing. Why they all look so different is one deck's just got that matchup lottery and went right through, 7-0, all that sort of stuff, and you will just rinse and repeat, just whatever you verse on the day, and you're getting 3 out of 5 good matchups, and you're just hoping to dodge 2. Is generally the consensus I'm feeling of the metagame, which I think is great. Like I think that's a good place to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice to have 5 like top decks as well. It very much doesn't feel like any of those 5 are head and shoulders above the rest. Which is really good. Like a lot of times in Pauper we've had where one deck is just by far better than everything else, like Kuldotha with Swift Spear, for example. And to have so many decks at the top is really good. And I guess also Duskmorn will be coming out sometime soon. So we'll see if we get any hits from that, and if that shakes up the format any.
I usually know a set's coming out when I start getting spoilers on Reddit, and that's probably about it. spoiler season, new set time. Yeah. Anything else to add?
No, not for the challenges.
Shout out to all the grinders, obviously, who's been throughout the challenges. You've got Season of the Mist coming in, Baker. We've sort of covered them all. Kirby, Luffy, the usual suspects. Spock, obviously, Discover N, and all that sort of stuff. It makes it obviously interesting for us to just cover and see his, evolved decks, etc., all that sort of good stuff. Shout out to obviously Kirby in general, just for the data. Always great to see. We are a bit later recording this week, so the matchup win rate for the whole thing's up, which we could have covered, but we don't normally cover it, so we decided against it with the big table of which deck did what against what, and we could have be here for hours, but it is great look to see on Twitter. It's great visually. And then finally, shout out to obviously Harlequins in Preston for getting involved and obviously growing the UK Pauper scene. It was a great round event, so I believe. So yeah,
you'll have to come to the next one.
Next one. Yeah, and I guess one thing is obviously another unfortunate thing. Obviously, we didn't get we have been shouting out Recollects, obviously, event. We didn't get the top 8 data for that or the winner box. We do know it went ahead, but we didn't get the data to even consider showing you what the top 8 was. Just so you all don't think that we just, it's happened, it's gone, we've ignored it. Yeah, we didn't get any data from them, so none of us went down because Reese went to the one on the Sunday, much closer for us. And yeah. Moving on to hot takes.
Yeah. So my first hot take from last week was that we would see another Dredge top 10. It top 8'd, so Woo! I'll take that as a win. As you were basically just saying, like the matchups at the moment definitely feel like if you hit the meta right, you can basically just crush with whichever deck you pick.
Yep.
Which is where Dredge shines basically. If you can hit that meta right with Dredge, avoid those Glee combo decks for the most part, and you'll probably have quite a good time.
Mine was that Fairies will be fully resurgence in at least one of the challenges next week with Baker top 8 and Faye was in the top 8 and Baker was in the same top 8 but also not on Fair. But I do think it sort of did. There was 3 pilots on Friday, there was 3 pilots on Saturday, and then Sunday it sort of went out of 2 pilots, but then 3 was on like the Demir control thing. But so it sort of now went from absolutely nowhere to sort of being amongst the meta, which is definitely what we, well, I wouldn't say what we want because Spellstutter Sprite's still an annoying card, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was resurgent, but it's definitely gained some ground on where it was.
Yeah, gained ground on 0 is
yeah.
is a bonus, I guess.
My last take from last week was that Kuldotha would push to be in contention with the top 4 decks at the time. It definitely seems to now be up there. Obviously didn't have a great showing on the Sunday, but being in like double copies in both the other top 8s. One copy in the Saturday and then double copy in the Friday. It's definitely back. I would probably say it's now in that top 5 decks again. Alongside obviously Terra, the Glee decks sort of mushed together, Affinity and Ponzulus. Yeah, it's returned to the top.
It was the most played deck on Friday. It sort of cemented middle of the roadish, sort of same as Mono Blue Terra for the rest of the weekend. Looking at that, so pretty good showing overall. My last hot take was that Corgates will make a return next week, and that did not happen.
Did anyone play Corgates?
That was my next thing. Was that no one on Sunday? I'm just scrolling down.
I didn't notice any as I was scanning the.
Actually, to be fair, there was one on Saturday, and it went 4-2, and it had a 66% win rate. So I'm assuming it's top 16. I just missed it.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday there was one person playing it, and it went 3-3. So I had a 50% win rate. So there's 2 people played it all weekend. So
that's not the worst, to be fair. Yeah, it was on the Saturday. It was Twister in 16th, exactly 16th. Yeah.
I think,
It's sort of a. It's in such a weird place, that deck.
yeah, I think it gained Thraben Charm, which is always a bonus, as we sort of discussed with White Weenie. It's not as much as hard removal as it is in White Weenie, but I think if Fae sort of keeps being middle of the road and part of the bottom decks, like the tier 2 decks, let's say, I think it's got more of a chance to ride its way through, because if it versus more tier 2 decks, I think it's got a higher chance of getting through. Like, it probably has quite a few more weak matchups. It's probably like 2 out of 5 as opposed to 3 out of 5 of the top 5.
Yeah.
So,
Hot takes for next week. My first one is that White Weenie will increase its metagame share after its pretty decent performance in 2 top 8s this week.
my next one is I'm doubling down. Core Gates will come back, is basically what I'm saying. So
why?
basically, because as I said before, I think it's got weaker. It's not 3 out of 5 like the other tier 2 decks. Like, White Weenie's got like 3 out of 5 good matchups. Dredge has probably got 3 out of 5 good matchups. All that sort of stuff. But if there's more tier 2 decks in the mix, which the spread of decks isn't like, as we were talking about, it's not like 10, 10, 10, 10. It's very much very close. Like, you're looking at sometimes Terror and Kuldotha have 3 to 4 pilots, and that's one of the big 5. So if they're competing at the same sort of level, like your 3 pilots playing Korgate, for example, there's very much a good chance like you can get in amongst that by versing the White Weenies, the Dredges, the Blue-Black Fays, and all that sort of stuff, where it gets a lot closer. So I think it's an okay call against the general field, not against the top 5, if that makes sense.
Fair.
And also, we are the Prophets of Pauper. So they do come true eventually, just usually weeks ahead, because we are so on the nose.
My last one for next week is that a non-Glee combo deck will return to the top 8s.
It's
been a while. It's been a while. We haven't seen any Tyrub Cycle Storm or Mogwarts or anything like that. Turbo Fog.
That's what we need. We need another combo deck just to break its way through, just for fun. My last one is that someone will top 16 with Cauldron Familiar. I'm hoping.
You're going to play some challenges next week?
Maybe. But I made a video on this that I actually think it's really good in Gardens at the moment. And I also think the food Bloomborough stuff is actually pretty cracked. But I do actually think Cauldron Familiar is actually really good in a food-esque shell, like Gardens, where you're running Lembas and the Heat Harvest anyways, because it literally frees up so much removal for your deck. Like, you literally, like for Ponza, for example, you literally only have to kill now 8 creatures. Or 10, I guess,
just the tramplers.
Anything with trample you kill. Anything else, I'm just throwing a cat at it until you die. So, I just think it doesn't have to be its food deck or anything, just Cauldron Familiar in general. I don't know why.
Yeah, there's sort of a lot of incidental food, isn't there? So it sort of triggers relatively easy. You don't need to add too much in. Gardens definitely seems to be the one that makes the most sense, but it would be sweet if just someone played cat food and top 8.
I'll accept cat food with gates as well, because I think that's obviously possible. 3 wins with Gingerbread.
Gingerbread.
That's it. Is that anything else?
No, that's it from me.
Thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your family, your local pauper community, and even your comedians. Local comedians, I guess. Because who knows other comedians out there, Anyways, that is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, and don't forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
Bye.